or in the middle of lecture, it's fine with me. So I sent you an announcement on Blackboard. We're going to do it a little differently, and because showing you makes it easier. So all of the Friday discussion sections are down here under study materials, including Friday uploads, Friday discussion uploads, and we're, as a test this week, we put up the discussion sheet ahead of time. So after today's class, you should be able to do all of the Friday discussion section handout. But as another wrinkle of this, I'm putting up the answers here. Okay? I'm putting up the answers here. And what I highly, highly recommend, and I've got your attention because of prelim 2, is I highly recommend the following thing. I'm just going to read what I have written here. I highly recommend that you take 15 minutes doing the section handout that you have. And if you get stuck, circle things or try to start the problem. You really need to start and get the problem working. But only take 15 minutes, because if you struggle for 3 hours, it's no point. The first 15 minutes are really, really good. And then take 20 minutes and just copy out the answers. But in an honest way of, I didn't get this, I did get this. Again, circling anything that you find confusing. So this is trying to combat, sometimes in discussion sections you go through and you're just struggling to follow along. This is a try. I've got your attention for a tiny moment. You're not looking at phones, Facebook, I have your attention. Please try to go from makes sense and following along to I can do it. So as you're doing, get prepared for Friday section tomorrow, circle the things that don't make sense, bring questions. The TAs have been instructed not to go through in chronological order. They want you to bring those questions. In addition to that, I've seated a few students. I've emailed them. You know who you are. I'm not going to mention you. But I've told some students, I want you especially to bring questions. So hopefully, even if this announcement doesn't get your attention, those people will kind of have the extra push to ask questions. It's really an invitation. We want to know what's not clicking in the answers. Because something is missing. You have all the homeworks. You have all the homework answers. You did them. You have the answers. But something's different. So if you can start circling those answers, going back and saying, I thought I got this, but I didn't really get that, that's how you can do a lot of it. So that's highly recommended. What is required, someone might ask? You can just do nothing. You can just show up and not even fill it out. It's not going to be turned in. The possibility I will ask you for a quiz in here, but quizzes are not high stakes. But if you do that, you take the risk in your learning. You take the risk of just perpetuating this totally makes sense, I'll do great, and on the final, it's really stressful and not fun. I don't want stress. I don't want not fun. I want you to get to where you want to be, because I can do it well. You know?
So before, if we missed the Friday discussion, we had to hand in this to get the point back. Does that still apply?
Yes, that still applies. So if you're missing the Friday section, all you need to do is hand in a finished one. Of course, I can't tell the difference between you turning in just copied answers or not, but my hope is, well, the thing that sorts it out is on the final. On the final, I will find out who actually has it pretty solid and who's just going through the motions. Yes. The final will be cumulative with an emphasis on the material since the exam. A good place, the finals from last year and the year before are things that give you a sense of what the mix will be on the final. Are there any other questions to eliminate uncertainty about Friday's section, tomorrow's section? Okay. So this is your opportunity to, I'm trying to model this going back with the answers and still saying, oh, there's still things I'm shaky on. Okay. The second thing is on the prelim, we had a good discussion yesterday, or 2 days ago, about the prelim. So a question I am getting is, why are you not giving me a grade scale? Okay? Why am I not giving you a grade scale? So you notice I haven't given you a grade scale. The reason I'm doing that is because I don't want you to think about the grade. I really want you to think about these two things. Make sense versus I can do it. If you're happy with how you are and you really feel like you're in the I can do it category, you don't have to take the retake. But if you're in the category of it's just making sense and you're shaky, I want you to do the retake so that you can get to that level. I have a few other things, but I'll take questions first. Yeah.
Was there some score cutoff where you can't retake?
So there is no score cutoff that you can't retake it, but there will be a score cutoff where I won't improve your grade. So what I will say is I will improve your grade up to the border between B and B+. That's the highest you can go. But I'm not telling you where B and B+ is. So the way it's going to work, I'll give you a few things. The cutoff is somewhere between 45 and 52. Okay, so if you're above 52, I really don't think you need to. If you're in that middle region, then it's somewhere in there. Okay. But with that said, I know you don't want to waste your time. Well, if you already can do it, it's not really a waste of your time. It's just an hour or an hour and a half. If you are in the make sense category, it's not a waste of your time. Guarantee you it's not a waste of your time. But with that said, I will say if you are above the cutoff, this will not lower your score. And then the second thing is some people, can we have a guarantee that the grade won't drop if I do badly on the retake? So to that, I need to say the first thing is I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to score higher. I want you to move more towards I can do it. If you are in that I can do it category, you won't do worse. So with that said, I need to alleviate the fears. I'm going to have a limited risk situation, meaning there are two parts of this. The first part, if you're taking the retake and you feel like you bombed it, or if you are sick, or if you have too much floating in your head, you don't have to turn in the retake. Okay? So that's the first part. And then we'll deal with the right thing to do after that. But if you really feel like you're not doing you're not even displaying the improvements that you have in these few weeks, then you don't have to turn it in. The second, if you do turn it in and you do really poorly, the most you can drop is 2 points. Okay? I don't want it to be 0 points because then you won't take it as seriously. I want there to be a little bit of downside risk, so you're serious. So if you had a 50 and the cutoff's 52 and you end up getting a 0 on the retake, your score will go down 48. Most thing will go down is 2 points from what you had. Okay? I think that's fair. And then a final question. What if you don't get it on the retake? We will figure out what to do after that. Okay? So I want you to move towards not the score focus, but on this level of learning and understanding that I can do it. I can do it. Okay? The exam will be similar things. I will change some things up. It will not be exactly the same. I do have a question here for you about prelims. Someone told me there are a lot of prelims like this week, next week, and the following week. So who has raised one hand if you have two or more prelims? Raise 2 hands. Raise one hand if you have a 1 or 2 hands if you have a prelim next week. Okay. 2 hands. Okay. What about the week after that? Okay. You have 2. Okay. So I think that's where is your prelim in that week? Do I need to pull up a calendar? So get out your calendars if you can. So next week is the 11th through the 15th. I will not have it that week given that almost everyone raised their hand. The week of the 18th through the 22nd, those people who had their hands up, what is on Monday? Do you have prelims on Monday the 18th? Monday, you have one. Okay, so it might be on Monday 18th, but I'm going to see what the possibilities are. Tuesday the 19th. Okay, so 4. Okay, Wednesday the 20th. Okay, Wednesday the 20th looks good. Thursday the 14th. Okay, 1. Okay, so Wednesday looks good, and Friday the 15th. Oh, sorry, I messed up. Sorry. 18th, 19th, Wednesday the 20th is still all clear. And then the 21st, we had 1 or 2, okay. And the 22nd, if you want, okay, I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you want it on a Wednesday or do you want it on a Friday? So there are 2 choices, Wednesday and a Friday. I'm going to ask Wednesday and then Friday, raise your hand once. Actually, no, if you don't care at all, you can raise your hand twice, okay? I'll just kind of get it. Who wants it on Wednesday the 20th? Okay? And who wants it on Friday the 22nd?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What time is it?
What what time would not make sense for you? I mean,
This is based on class.
on Wednesday it'd be at the, probably starting at 5. So Wednesday that's a good point. Wednesday at 5 or Friday, my weekend plans, Friday at 4:30. Friday at 4:30, okay? So those are the two options. Wednesday at 5, show of hands. That you want it, that you like that or works for you, okay? And then Friday at 4:30. Okay. I think Wednesday at 5 is what the sense of it is. Okay? Okay, we have a time. Let me just jot a note.
So what's this from?
My old man memory.
This is retake. Oh, retake? Yeah. Sean didn't need the retake, so yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
I guess they voted for the wrong reason. Oops.
Yeah, but
Okay. If you have an exact thing at 5, you can start it at 4. If you have something, if you have something at 6, you can start at 4. If you have something at 5, you can start it at 6. I'm fine with those types of arrangements. Okay? Because I really want, my focus is on getting you to that level of understanding. I try to be as laser focused as I can on your learning and not on scores and is this fair and things like that. Everyone had the same exam. It is doable. Okay? Okay, Justin?
When do we find out what the scale actually is? Is that just at the end of the semester?
Oh, I will tell you after the retake is great.
Oh, after the retake.
So the cutoff, I'll tell you what your score, what the actual cutoff is, and what your new score will be. I also don't want to focus, normally I give you a set formula of 60% new score, 40% old score. I don't want to do that. I will be generous. I will be looking for the improvement and I can do it, but I want to give myself room to give you more points. At worst, it's going to be half-half, but I'm probably going to have higher than half to the new score. Okay, does that make sense? And make sense why I want to do that? Because I want to encourage your learning. Okay. Okay. That's good. Housekeeping. Okay. So in the same sense, we had last class, we finished up with monopoly. We had a system with one company. That one company, the types of questions I ask in calculation are going to be in this type of way. You have a demand curve, you have a certain cost structure, and we're trying to say, where is the company profit maximized? So this was the concept check that we did at the end. So price is 600 minus 3Q, this marginal cost curve. Graphically, what does it look like? Numerically, what does it look like? So I'm going to ask you a make sense versus I can do it. So if I were to do this on the board right now, how many of you think you could follow along? Okay? If I were to do this question again, the same exact question, without your notes, like with your notes closed, how many of you think you can follow along with this? Okay? How many of you think you can do it? Okay? So what is the difference between, so this is just to cue you, what is the difference between following along and you can do it? Okay? So I'm going to have you follow along. I'm going to ask you to do this again. Challenge yourself. Challenge yourself, get a sheet of paper. If you need a sheet of paper, come up or borrow one from a friend. And just do this problem. You saw it last time, the same exact problem. Let's see where we're at, because I want to model the behavior of taking something you know and doing it again to see if you have it, you got it.
Can I buy a paper?
Oh yeah, can I have it?
Okay, I'll actually walk around. Who wants a sheet of paper?
Thanks, Caleb.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm good already. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Is this for a roll?
Just pass it back, I guess.
I like blank paper. It's great.
Just drawing on it.
Graphically.
I'll give you a minute head start. I thought I could do it, I might be able to do it. That's golden learning opportunity. That's the point. Good. So I'm going to do up here with the focus blurry, so you can't see my numbers. You can see the type. So you shouldn't look. You should focus on yourself. You don't need anything up here. If you're lost, you can look at this. This more in focus. If you need to look at it, go ahead. But if you're on a roll, don't look up. Repeat. If you're on a roll, don't look up. You check your answers.
Gabby, that'll be my honor.
Just
I should have said that so quick.
yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sort of the first part.
Graphically, I understand.
Yeah.
But I feel like what I'm saying, you can always do it graphically, even if it asks, you know, the specific answer.
But like you still you need to be able to understand it numerically way more for this.
Yeah, because he might not accept the graphic method. It says, like if he says do a quadrant.
Yeah.
Because I was checking old finals, and he always says make the quadrant. I've been in McDonald's today. So they didn't understand what life was.
Yeah, for sure. That's what they do.
It's really good. Like when you're one-on-one with it, I actually really good. I'm just upset that checking out the problem isn't going to be I actually thought that wasn't like that. Chapter 8 is so much harder than chapter 9.
Chapter 8 is all about
disposal.
I think it's okay. It's just like, I feel like there's a lot of ways that it can get really dicey.
Exactly, and you don't know how she's going to ask. Chapter 9, you knew what she was
I remember the numbers from last time.
And those multiple choice.
It's kind of weird having fractional people.
Sounds good. You're talking to each other. That's good. I'm not telling you to stop. But when you talk to each other, ask them something that didn't click or is clicking suddenly because you're doing it again. That's what I want you to see. And to make it extremely clear, that's what you need to write down on your crib sheet, note sheet. Not formulas. I mean, you should have those formulas, but it's, I forgot to do this in class. I pledged to myself I will not forget to do this on the exam. You know, but in shorter language. Okay? So if you have something in the discussions that you have with each other, or in your memory of when you learned it the first time and when it clicked. What was the change? Okay? So a few things that I've heard is why is marginal revenue equal to A minus BQ, 2BQ, when you have price equals A minus BQ. That's great. The second is sometimes people will ask, where does this come from? Where does that come from? So people have asked that question. Some people say, what are you doing? Why do you plug in? Where do you get the 350? So do you know the answer to that? If you do, great. If you don't, that should be somewhere on your sheet. I'm trying to model you to get to that level. And this is not just review, I mean, this is partial review, but we are going to use this 4 or 5 times today. So if this is not solid, if it's not on the way to being solid and more, if you have it mostly, as you see it more times, it'll be more and more solid each time you see it. If you don't have it, then each time you see it, you'll feel less and less solid about that. I don't want you to be in that less and less solid. I want you to be more and more solid. Okay? So are there any other things that you want me to answer about this concept check before I go forward? Okay?
Yeah, I didn't understand how you get 100 for the
Okay.
the profit. Well,
So
200. Yeah.
tell me where to move, to the right or to the left? So this side or?
Yeah, to the left, like graphically. How did you find the 100 for
Okay.
the marginal cost?
Okay. So. Okay. Anything else, Stephanie? Did you have a question?
It's actually not that important of a question, but I was going to say, when did you say that we wouldn't have a supply curve because that reverse L-shaped graph is supply, but
So the reverse L-shaped curve is, it's like supply, but we're not saying if this is the price, that's the quantity we want to sell.
okay, so that's constrained. That's a constraint
So
graph.
it's,
more than
it
anything.
has to do with our cost, but it's not the supply curve.
Gotcha. Mhm.
It's not the supply curve. Okay. So this is what I hope discussion will be like tomorrow. Okay. I'm going to go through these 4 and then give you the answer. Not the answer. And give you these 4, and then you can ask me more questions if you need. Okay. So first, why do we have marginal revenue equals A minus BQ? The first part of this is just that's the formula. And in a sense, you need to know 2 things: how to use it and why. Okay. So in this question, all I've asked you is to use it. But for those of you who didn't ask why it's this way, you're somewhat limiting yourself. So good job, kudos, positive thumbs up if you were thinking about this why. What is this MR thing? So MR first is marginal revenue. And it's going to be the additional revenue. I'm sorry, I have a Benadryl now, so I apologize for my nasally sounding. Additional revenue from +1 in quantity. Okay? So when we have a demand curve, if I wanted to find out what the marginal revenue is from going from, say, let's say this is 40. If I have a quantity of 40 and a price of 40 times 3, 600 minus 3Q, 600 minus 3 times 40 is 600 minus 120, or 480. If I want to figure out the marginal revenue here, I want to think about the additional revenue of +1Q. I want to think about 41. What is the revenue, and what is the change in the revenue? So the old revenue is going to look like this. The new revenue is going to look like this. I love asking these questions because this tests whether you got it. You're in that I got it mode. I understand what marginal revenue is. So the marginal revenue is going to be 1 wide, and whatever that next number is, 41 plugged into there is going to be 479. Or sorry, 477. Right? and it's going to be 477 tall. So this is the plus area. And this is the minus area. The minus area is 3 tall, 480 minus 477, and 40 wide. And when I plug that in, I'll just write that 1 times 477 minus 3 times 40. That's going to be 477 minus 120, which is going to be about 357. Okay. That is, so in a full sentence, at Q equals 40, the marginal revenue is going to equal 357. Because that's from this. If I made a table of all the Qs, all the revenue olds, all the revenue news, and all the marginal revenues, that table of the different Qs and different marginal revenues, that's the equation that will end up giving me this. So let's try that. And there's going to be, suspend your disbelief for a second. Or suspend your, that's not right. So I have marginal revenue equals 600 minus 6Q. So if I put Q equals 40 in here, then the marginal revenue is going to be 600 minus 240 is going to be 360. So this equation set is a machine that says anytime you plug in a Q, I get a marginal revenue. In other words, math review. And this 360 almost matches this 357. The difference in this is the rounding error. It's rounding error. So I don't want you to focus too much that these two numbers are very different, but just that they're very close. So because of that, we don't need to compute 40 times 40, 477 times 41, and then 474, because every time I move over, it's down 3. Every plus 1Q is down 3. That's the equation. The 42. I don't have to draw all of those rectangles. The shortcut to giving you that table is use this formula. So that is the complete answer to this. In a to use it way, just use the formula, double the 3 to a 6. And the y is because we're doing all of these rectangles, and now we're saying, but there's a faster way. We can move between the idea and then a formula to give us that answer. I think that's a pretty complete answer. Yeah.
Just an application question.
Okay.
We got 83 and a third.
Yes.
Now, is that marginal revenue, since it's the cost of the next unit, is that the marginal revenue from going 83 and a third to 84 and a third, or 83 and a third to going to 84?
It'd be a whole plus 1, 84 and a third.
Okay, and given as it's the cost of proceeding to the next unit, would a business at that point simply decide, okay, we're going to make 84 because it's essentially the same returns and we're not going to make a fractional unit?
So in the land of econ, we don't like to constrain ourselves to whole units. So 83 and a third is legal for a company to make. 84 and a third is legal for a company to make. Ultimately, once they a better answer to that is once you know it's 83 and a third, you check 83, you check 84, you check 85, and then you pick the one with the highest profit. Because the whole point of this is how do you get the profit maximum?
Thank you.
Brett?
Is it 83 and a third?
So
why would 84?
83 and a third is profit maximizing, but if I said you can't do 83 and a third, and you have to choose 83 or 84 or 85 or a whole number, then you don't have to look at 100, 101, 102. You know it's going to be around here. Another way to look at it is if we plotted profit, then the place where it's highest is going to be 83 and a third. So we just have to look 83, 80, if we have to do either this or this, then we just have to. We have to pick the nearest whole unit. Any other questions on the first one?
Could you go back to it? I just need to finish looking at what you wrote.
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
This one?
Yep, yep.
Okay. So the second question, just to put up there, is why do we have this shape? We need to know the costs. That's the cost curve. So this is when we have a constant marginal cost of $100. What's the marginal cost for the first unit, the additional cost for the first unit? $100. What is the additional cost for the second unit? Another $100. Another $100, another $100. So that is what this figure is. This figure gives you the marginal cost for that. And so a thing that students will often do is they won't label their lines, and I haven't labeled it here either entirely. This is the demand curve. These are prices or costs. These are quantities. And that whole thing is the marginal cost curve. Mainly this section, but we draw it up. The next, if we want to do 201 rooms, we have to go up to infinity. We have to build them. So once you label it, it gets to be easier. I can't tell you how many students, especially in the next class, they'll just draw the two and they'll pick the intersection there. That happens. I don't want that to happen to you because you have gone through it and you know the steps, the procedure to get there. So that's where we get the 100 and 200. To the question of 100, where do we get 100? It just comes from the marginal cost of the 100. So this is a good point. I've been doing this a while, and I do it in the way the book does it, and I learned to do it. And once you're comfortable, you might do it all at once by putting everything in one figure. But if you don't like that, perfectly valid, you'll get the same score, you'll possibly even get higher score, is draw marginal costs separately. So you have one graph that just has this, and then draw demand and marginal revenue on a curve. And then put them together. Okay? You can skip a step if you're really good with graphs and you're really confident in your organization. Just go straight to it. If you're not, draw each separately. Because chunking a big problem to smaller problems is the way to make progress. Anything else I want to say about that? No. And then the final one, is this the supply curve? So this is a great question. It allows me to say, what is the definition of a supply curve? We have a demand curve. We want a supply curve because we say demand and supply so often. Well, a monopoly doesn't have a supply curve. In this specific question, this is not a supply curve because if the price were $3.50 like we have in this answer, then if this was a supply curve, this would mean the company would want to sell this many units. But that's not really what's going on. The company isn't saying, I get to choose any quantity at $350. The company is thinking, oh, if the price were, I get to choose from all the different points on here. I'm a price searcher, not a price taker. So if monopoly price searcher, you can remember search on the demand curve. That will help you remember the steps in the flow and the stories. Like make this make sense. So with that said, does anyone need any more clarification? And notice, I haven't spent a lot of time talking about the mechanics. I actually just like talking about these steps. It's either algebra or something. I want you to tell me what step was confusing. Because as much as I've tried to be a mind reader, I couldn't get a career in that. No one's very good at it. Maybe like David Blaine is. So I'm going to give that 10-second countdown of look at your notes. Is there anything confusing on there? Or do you feel like what you did is getting you? I can do it.
How do we know the
So it's a good question. So what about fixed costs? Fixed costs equals 0. So I'm going to give you the answer in a slightly complicated way. I didn't give you the fixed costs here. So I didn't actually say the fixed costs are 0. But here's a nice thing. The fixed costs don't affect where the profit maximizing is. Because the profit maximizing only needs you to take the demand curve, get the marginal revenue curve, and use the marginal cost curve. So the fixed costs don't affect how you answer this problem. The fixed costs will play into the case when we calculate the profit.
Okay, so last time when we did this problem, we did do that. Have you been answering this question like on a test meeting needed to do anything like that?
So if I ask what is the profit maximizing P and Q, you don't have to do this final step.
Okay, so what's the difference between question one and question two?
So question 1 and question 2 is I ask you to do it graphically, and I ask you to do it numerically. Graphically is just drawing the graph and describing where the intersection is. It's the intersection of marginal revenue and marginal cost. And then you go up to the demand curve to do it. Numerical is you have the marginal revenue curve. So if I were to do, maps are good. Step 1, step 2, step 3 is good. So let me do that. So if I were to start, you have this and you have this. That is stuff that's given in the problem. So that's almost like a step 0. Get the demand curve, get the marginal cost curve. Step 2, or the real step 1, is to draw the marginal revenue curve. This step 1 corresponds to that. Graphical numerical. And step 2 is find the intersection point. That's step 2 here. That gives me this Q. This next part, I take that Q and I plug it into this equation. And what does that look like graphically? It means I take that Q, I go up to the demand curve, and I just read off what the price is. But I can do that numerically by plugging it in there. In fact, I think that was what stuck a lot of you on question 1 that didn't do well in question 1 in the prelim. I gave you I gave you enough information for that supply curve, but I just gave you the demand curve as an equation. And some of you didn't know, I just plug in the quantity into that equation to find the intersections. Drawing it graphically was good, but you didn't have that math translation as well. And then finally, step 4 is not drawn here, but if I had it, I'll have some average total cost curve, something like that. Average total cost. So I find average total cost, and then do revenue, total cost, things like that. If fixed costs are 0, average total cost will be the same as average variable cost. If fixed costs are more than 0, it'll be up here. Does that change the profit maximizing point? Does that change where it intersects? The one exception is, well, in this case, if average total cost is higher than the price, you'll make a loss. In this case, you'll still be in the region where you're covering your variable costs, because your price is higher than that and you're covering your variable costs. So you won't shut down even.
For the marginal cost in there, is it, so like for every extra unit, it's that extra marginal cost, but if you're trying to figure out like the total variable cost, would you multiply by the quantity instead of that?
Yes, so that's another great question. Okay. So does anyone want to try to answer? This is a little tougher, but so why is it okay but breaks Chong's heart? Breaks Chong's heart.
What?
To do this. Total variable cost equals marginal cost times quantity. Why is that okay in this case? Caleb?
Because the marginal cost curve and the variable cost curve are the same curve.
Average variable cost is the same as marginal cost in this case. So you can do that. But it breaks my heart when you do that because you can lose points if we're doing some other type of problem.
So only when marginal cost is equal to the variable, yeah.
If it's equal, then this is true. This is an always true situation. Total variable cost equals average variable cost times Q. So what I'd like you to do is when marginal cost is constant, that tells you, that gives you this, these two things are going to be the same.
Okay.
And I'm going to write 5'6", because somehow that triggers you that story. A 5'6" person enters the room. Another 5'6" person enters the room. Another 5'6" person enters the room. What's the average? 5'6". Okay, let's, that was a lot of time on it, but good time. I am going to, this is just, I'm going to do this pretty quickly. It's a repeat of what was before. How do we get monopolies? So some more, one way is to have a natural monopoly. A natural monopoly is where a natural monopoly or some situations where we have network effects. So a natural monopoly is where it's most efficient to have one supplier. So municipal water, electricity distribution, telephone service, even in some sense Netflix. Netflix hopes that it only really makes sense to have one company focus on building the technology to deliver video, or YouTube. Do we need 5 or 10 YouTubes? One YouTube is enough. We don't need 5 sets of people to build 5 different YouTube clones. So in those cases, there's a bit of a natural monopoly, but to build YouTubes, it doesn't take a lot of money to build another YouTube. To build another water system or electricity system or telephone system, landlines, it is expensive to do. Yeah, Phil?
How is efficient defined here?
So efficient means low cost. So it's related to economies of scale that we had in an earlier slide, meaning it's only cost effective, or to get to the low cost level. Let me go back. So we've been studying situations where we have firm costs that look like this: average total cost and marginal cost. So in this case, if we were thinking about where is the lowest per unit cost, so this comes from a homework, where's the lowest per unit cost? It's right there. Because the per unit cost here is higher, this is the lowest, and then it goes back up. So if we needed 500 times this, we wouldn't have one company do it. Because one company doing 500 times, so if I kind of think 500, so if this is 100, then 500 hundreds, or 50,000, the average total cost curve is going to get really large. Okay? But in a natural monopoly, you'll have a situation where the average total cost just keeps on going down. The average total cost keeps on going down. So in that case, as you produce more and more quantity, you'll end up having a lower and lower cost. So that's the situation with municipal water, electricity distribution, telephone service. Not really what we're dealing with hotels, restaurants, hospitality. Okay. This is also the case if we have something constant marginal cost, but with zero, with zero capacity constraint. So in that case, it makes sense for one company to do it. If we have a second company, each company has to pay that fixed cost. Usually when they're really high fixed costs. So that's more of that's a general econ idea. How does it relate to you as hoteliers? One situation is you'll have network effects. So to Caleb's question, what are you meaning by most efficient? I'm kind of being hazy. It's a situation where one provider makes the most sense in terms of costs, or that the service works. So network effects is the other example. Effects where the value of a good or service is enhanced by other people adopting it. So Facebook, you use Facebook, not just because it's extremely addictive and the cat pictures and the puppy pictures, but because your friends are on Facebook. There are other social media sites that are trying to start, but your friends aren't on there, so you don't want to join on there. So in that way, the value of using Facebook is enhanced by other people using it. Okay? eBay. Imagine if you went to eBay, an auction site, and not many people were selling the thing you're looking for. So because of that, eBay is a platform, and when there's a dominant platform and everyone's already on it, you can't just create eBay, fake eBay or eBay clone and have people charge 1 cent fewer fees and expect people to go there, because they can't find the things that they're looking for. So dance clubs or restaurants or social clubs, club managers associations, so those private clubs, those are situations where if you are the only person in the club, it's not very fun. So that's why you have this herd mentality. You often have one bar or one restaurant that's really popular, especially Miami Beach. I've heard, I haven't been there. So everyone will go to that club because the value that people get from it are enhanced by just going to that one club together. And no one goes to the other club. And then that club loses its cachet and everyone goes to another club. So that's, in effect, related to this network effect. People are enjoying it because because the value or service is enhanced by other people using it. Yeah?
And monopolies due to network effects would be short-term, not long-term, because eventually other people will switch. Or like, if an eBay client offered 1 cent fewer fees, then all the suppliers would rationally eventually switch.
So that's a good point. If we create an eBay and we made it $1 less, and we closed down eBay for a month and said everyone use this other eBay for $1 less, a lot of people would try out this new thing and then they would not go back to the old eBay because they get it for $1 less. They can make more money off it. I would agree with that. But the caveat is, it's very hard to get everyone to go to another thing. So eBay is very careful not to have an outage, because if they have an outage, they will lose relevance very quickly. Facebook just works. If Facebook only worked every other day, you'd find something better. So eBay, so the critique of counter statement is if you make it 1 cent less, if only 5% of people go there, it's not going to have the same value, and people will still want to go to stay at the old eBay. So the reason it's a natural monopoly is because it's very hard to get everyone to switch all at once. And until they switch all at once, they're not going to get the same value but at a lower cost or better surplus from that. So it's kind of nice when you're at eBay or Facebook and have that platform. The reason why I also agree with the short run is Facebook doesn't have anything really stopping other people from doing this except this network effect. So if you can find a way to be more relevant than Facebook to small groups of people, you can compete and make $1 billion yourself. Yeah, Will?
What does the not a monopoly refer to? The dance clubs?
Oh, dance clubs are not a monopoly in that there isn't one dance club and those things. But you might say the hottest dance club is kind of a monopoly.
Yeah. And now what is the difference between, say, legally wise, like Facebook having, there is other Facebook type of things, but it's not illegal for Facebook to do that, but then you have stuff where they do bust people for monopolies, and technically you could, Microsoft got busted for that microchip, but other people can make it.
Yeah, Microsoft got busted because they used their power to stop other people. So they said, if you install Windows, you have to install Internet Explorer. And they made it hard for Chrome to exist.
Oh.
So if we didn't have the Department of Justice, then Microsoft would just say, Microsoft is not compatible with Google Chrome browser. And that would be an illegal use of your dominance, of your monopoly dominance. If they didn't do that, they're still okay. So Facebook isn't doing evil or illegal things, business practices that try to kill off other companies. They do some things that are strategically like that. Like they make it very hard for you to copy all your friends and bring it to another network, and then have your other friends also import things. They do that for a reason. They don't want to make it easy. They don't make it impossible, but they don't make it easy, and that's what keeps people from wanting to do it. If people are lazy, they want the thing that's convenient.
And what about if every new company that came out that even got slightly hot, just buying them up, is that illegal too?
Nope, not illegal. Perfectly legal to do. And if you are a restaurant and you're enjoying monopoly profits and you see a smart hotelier chasing you down, trying to take your business, hire that hotelier so that you can do things. And that actually is a nice lead into some of these comments. Justin, question?
Yeah. What was the learner index?
Okay, the learner index is this slide, and I'm just going to I don't want to spend time on it right now. It's something that if you're very solid, it kind of enhances your understanding a little, but if you're shaky, it doesn't enhance it very much. It's something that is used in consulting and among economists, and the Department of Justice looks at it, but Fox News will never talk about it, and your CEOs will almost never talk about it unless they're econ geeks. So I don't want to emphasize it. So I'm just going to skip that for today.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing it up, but deliberate choice. I'm going to skip that. I may come back to that, but at most 1 point, and it would be 1 point if I come back to that and talk about that. If I don't talk about it, then I'm not even going to put up with it. I like the questions. I like the active learning. I think your peers also like it. Even though they're being quiet, maybe they're being socially shy, I think it's very helpful when you ask questions. So another rule in my class, talk to the person next to you. If you both have a question, ask it. But if you feel like there's someone in the room that would be helped by a question, ask the question you think they'll ask. And you can even start it like, I think a good question is, but not my question, if you need that social barrier or okayness. Okay, enough social psychology or organizational behavior. So core market structures, perfect competition, lots of companies, no profits, maybe some profits in the short run. Other companies come in, they ruin your business. Terrible thing. Monopoly, great if you can get it, but you're one seller, you're that only seller. So we're going to start complicating that with the next two. Oligopoly is where you have a small number of sellers. So there are several models for oligopoly. We won't even cover all of the models with oligopoly. We're going to cover just two, cartels and Nash-Cornell oligopoly. And price leadership is included in the slides and your homework. It will have 0 on your final exam. So you're not required to do it. I will not quiz you. It will have 0 impact on your grade, except that you will understand things more if you understand this price leadership. We're just going to talk about cartels and Nash-Cornell oligopoly. A cartel does price fixing. That is the definition of a cartel. And price fixing is an agreement by sellers to only sell at a certain price. Okay, or a certain set of prices. It doesn't have to be one price, but a set of prices. Often it's one price. So an oil cartel like OPEC is trying to agree, let's create enough oil so that we just all decide on one price. You also need some way to split up who gets to sell each quantity. So if you're still writing down, that's fine, but I'm going to say there's always going to be a demand curve in the market. So they're agreeing on a price and a quantity. It could be any price and quantity. And then this quantity, it would be the quantity for the cartel. And they have to decide, maybe I get 40% because I'm old and Gabby is an up-and-coming hotelier, so she'll get 60%. That's how we do it. So we'll figure out some way to split. There's no rule in splitting it. Take the negotiations class with Tony Simon if you want to figure out how to negotiate those things. The cartel, accordingly, tries to cooperate to jointly decide on the best outcome. So they're trying to find, out of all of these things, what is this cute cartel that's going to give them the highest prices? And I might draw in a marginal cost curve for the companies together. So what the firm is going to do in a cartel, it's a very big difference in story, but all the math is the same. The firm acts as if they are one firm and they price as a monopolist. So if we have an example, like if we have Q equals 6,000 minus 10P, we have two hotel firms, each with a capacity constraint of 3,000 rooms and a constant marginal cost of 300, and if we had no fixed costs. So this is the setup of the problem you did at the beginning of class. As a cartel, they would get together in a smoky room and they would decide how much do we want to sell with one firm, and they would act as if there were one firm with 6,000 rooms and the 300 marginal cost, which is common to both of them. If they have multiple marginal costs, they'll have to they'll use their multiple marginal cost curve to do that. So in this case, I won't do this as a concept check because we've done this essentially in that that long first part. We would draw the marginal cost curve for a hypothesized combined company. We would take the demand curve and we would do these steps. And finding the cartel price, we get the marginal revenue curve, we find the intersection, we go up to the demand curve and we take that price and we use that quantity. So the price is going to be 450, the quantity would be 1,500. So if you're shaky on this, go home and do this and try to get that answer. I'm not going to do it right now. So no new math. It's this idea you have two firms. So oligopoly is technically a small number of firms, but we're going to do two firms using econ class, we like to keep it easy, but in econ, the real world, you might have to deal with multiple firms. Here you have two firms colluding, deciding together what price they want to set. So this would be the price they want to set. So with two firms, 450, 1,500 units, they might split it in half. Each of them produces 750, and the cartel fixes the price at 450. But there's a problem with this. What if they cheat? And that's when I show this really fun video. Yes. I think a quarter of you have probably seen this, given who you...
Oh,
I never heard of
You've
it.
seen this?
yeah.
Awesome.
Oh my god, it's so cool.
Oops, sorry. Ah, what am I doing?
Final golden balls in front. They're the most important balls in the game. They're not cash balls, they're not killer balls. You both have a golden ball or with the word split written inside. You both have a golden ball with the word steal written inside. You will both make a conscious choice of picking the split or steal. Neither of you will know what the other has chosen. If you both choose the split ball, you will share today's jackpot of £66,885, and you will go home each with £33,442.50. That's an enormous amount. If one of you splits and one of you steals, whoever steals goes home with the total jackpot of £66,885. Whoever splits goes home with nothing. If you're both greedy, and you both try to play it clever, and you both steal, you both go home with a big fat zero. And there's £66,885 in that jackpot. Are you both clear what it means? I'm going to ask you now to check the two golden balls to make sure which is the split ball and which is the steal ball. Tell me, Lucy, check your balls to see which is split and which is steal.
So this is like two companies. They're trying to decide, do we want to collude or not? Do we want to cooperate?
Talk to each other
Or not.
what's happened today and how you feel.
It's £32,000 each. That's amazing. That would change my life. We have to split.
I brought the 65,000 through all the way, and we've managed to keep it on there and share it between us. We've done well. There's a huge amount each to share and go away with. It's a dream amount. I'm definitely
Oh my god.
No, that's just a hard thing. A different one.
We saw this in what, Mac? Oh, OB?
Yeah, just a different one.
She's horrible.
I think she's gonna steal.
She's stealing it, for sure. I remember that other guy, he was so clever.
Yeah.
Ah! I will show you in 1 second. I won't. But let's first talk about this.
No!
This is a situation just like in this.
Of course they picked it.
If we use the rule, winner takes all. If one firm charging $450 and the other charging $450, if they're both charging $450, they just kind of split.